Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right into the sudden and violent collapse of the US-Iran ceasefire and mapping out the huge global shockwaves it's sending right now. If you've been following these regional tensions, you know just how fragile this pause in fighting actually was. We're going to use the data and direct reports to unpack exactly how that pause shattered, so we can move past the headlines and truly understand the strategic shifts, the broken treaties, and the economic fallout rippling across the globe. Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the ceasefire collapse, the expanding target list, the breakdown of the Islamabad MOU, the Strait of Hormuz dispute, and finally, the massive global stakes of this uncontained war. Part 1. The ceasefire collapses. Let's look at the immediate human toll of this failing agreement, because behind all the geopolitical maneuvering, there's a very real cost. The gravity of the situation here is stark. Since July 6th, we've seen a really sharp, deadly spike in casualties in a very short window. We are talking about the first confirmed American military deaths since fighting resumed. U.S. Central Command confirmed 2 American service members were killed during an attack in Jordan, with 1 missing and 4 others hospitalized. And on the Iranian side, their health ministry is reporting 50 confirmed deaths and over 500 injured. And just look at how rapidly and intensely this all unfolded. This wasn't a single isolated incident. We saw the U.S. launch 7 consecutive nights of raids across Iran, zeroing in on surveillance facilities, logistics networks, and underground weapons storage sites. Iran hit back hard with a multi-missile and drone attack in Jordan. Actually, Jordanian authorities had to intercept 10 Iranian ballistic missiles during that exchange. Adding to the fog of war, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claims they destroyed a U.S. base in Azra and 2 American fighter jets. Though, keep in mind, that specific claim has not yet been independently verified. Moving to Part 2, expanding the target list. This brings us to a highly alarming shift in tactics by both sides. We're seeing the conflict evolve way beyond military-on-military engagements, directly impacting daily civilian life across the region. In Iran, bridges, railways, and vital water infrastructure have been hit. A strike on the Bunji desalination plant in Jask literally cut off water to 20 villages. That's roughly 10,000 people, suddenly without water. But the retaliation is hitting U.S. allied states too. In Kuwait, airspace had to be closed after strikes took out power and water desalination plants, injuring firefighters and forcing electricity rationing. The IRGC even targeted a U.S. military fuel pier at a Kuwaiti port. Over in Bahrain, air raid sirens are going off, sending residents scrambling for shelter. So naturally, the international community is raising major red flags. The Gulf Cooperation Council is explicitly calling these strikes on Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain war crimes and a highly dangerous escalation. On top of that, international legal experts are sounding the alarm, pointing out that deliberately attacking civilian infrastructure, whether it's conducted by Iran or the United States, is a clear-cut violation of international humanitarian law. Part 3. The Islamabad MOU breaks down. To really understand why this sudden surge in violence erupted, we have to look at the diplomacy. As tensions boiled over, the rhetoric from leadership on both sides became completely uncompromising. Iran's supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, went on state television and accused Washington of repeatedly violating the Islamabad MOU, which was an agreement originally mediated by Pakistan and Qatar. He declared President Trump's signature totally worthless and invalid, warning that the U.S. would face unforgettable lessons from Iran and its regional allies. On the flip side, President Trump didn't mince words either. At the NATO summit in Ankara, he declared the agreement completely dead. He used highly charged rhetoric, referring to Iranian leadership as scum and sick people, stating definitively that as far as he's concerned, negotiations are totally finished. He emphasized that if Iran possessed a nuclear weapon, they'd use it, using that to justify walking away from the table. The big takeaway here is that both sides have officially and very publicly flipped the table, opting instead for maximum economic and military pressure. Iran's deputy foreign minister confirmed they've suspended all commitments under the MOU. At the exact same time, the U.S. severely escalated its economic warfare, revoking a sanctions waiver on Iranian oil exports and slapping a strict naval blockade right back on Iranian ports. The diplomatic safety net? It's entirely gone. Which leads us to Part 4, the Strait of Hormuz dispute. Right at the heart of this broken treaty is a massive disagreement over Article 5. This dispute is over one of the most critical energy waterways on the planet, and it all hinges on how you interpret that article, which was supposed to guarantee safe passage. Iran's stance is that the agreement actually gave them the right to manage shipping routes and actively control traffic moving through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. stance is the polar opposite. Washington demands the waterway remain absolutely open to all commercial vessels without any Iranian restrictions. Because of this massive impasse, the U.S. is accusing Tehran of attacking commercial tankers, and the U.S. Navy is now actively restricting Iranian vessels again.
Finally, Part 5, Global Stakes and Uncontained War. Let's zoom out to the macro level, because what happens in the Gulf definitely does not stay in the Gulf.
The whole world is watching this closely, and for good reason. This localized conflict over a waterway is threatening to spill over into other vital choke points. There are active reports that Iran's Houthi allies in Yemen might move to close the Bab el-Mandeb gateway, which is the crucial entrance to the Red Sea. If we see attempts to restrict both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea simultaneously, we are looking at a massive, unprecedented disruption to global energy supplies. The domino effect of that is an immediate risk of skyrocketing global inflation as energy costs soar. And this economic pressure is hitting at a really critical domestic moment for the United States. The conflict is deeply unpopular among sections of the American public, and it's already imposing economic costs at home. With the U.S. midterm elections coming up in November, rising oil and gas prices are a direct threat to the Trump administration's stated objective to lower those exact costs for consumers. Plus, despite this expanding U.S. military campaign, it has so far failed to force Tehran to accept Washington's terms. Meanwhile, the calculus in Tehran is incredibly rigid. Iran's leadership isn't looking at this escalation in a vacuum. They see it as part of the broader U.S.-Israeli war that has been ongoing since February. To them, this is an entirely existential conflict. Because they believe their very survival is at stake, they are deeply entrenched. According to the source material, they are showing absolutely no signs of backing down or surrendering, regardless of the economic or military pressure applied.
So that leaves us with one final pressing question. Regional governments are still trying to push for an end to the conflict behind the scenes. But when you consider everything we've just mapped out, the diplomatic agreement completely suspended, American and Iranian troops dying, water and electricity infrastructure burning across allied Gulf states, and the looming threat to the global energy supply, has this conflict finally moved past the point of containment? It's a complex situation with immense global stakes, and understanding the facts on the ground is the very first step to seeing where it goes next. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.